I want to speak a little bit about the term troll, which has been floating around cyberspace for some time now, a few years I guess. Troll in this context, apologies, troll in this context generally means somebody who is said to be a troublemaker online. But the term is very vague, and this is problematic for a law that is being proposed now in the UK by the Justice Secretary, Chris Grayling. Grace Dent made a good article on this. I won't read everything out, but she says that this is. I'll just read a little bit of it because I think this really highlights the case. For many people, trolling is simply mischief making. Say, oh, by the way, Grace Dent is a columnist for the Independent newspaper. For many people, trolling is simply mischief making. Say, entering the Liverpool Football Club supporters forum pretending to be an Everton Football Club fan, or feigning ignorance on club history to get a delicious rise out of the resident pedant. Trolling, ambling into conversations with the distinct aim of causing havoc. In this case, Grayling would be propelling people into the court process for being bored, drunk, or simply consummate dickheads. If it's a crime nowadays to pretend to be more stupid than one actually is for personal gain, most of the BBC One light entertainment roster should be in strange ways. And it cites a few examples of notorious trolling cases. For example, the TV presenter Judy Finnegan made controversial remarks recently, sort of trivialising the convicted rapist Ched Evans, who's a footballer. So trolled, then sent rape threats to her daughter. There is also another example, a woman who was harassing the McCann family. She was publicly confronted by Sky News for being a troll. The McCanns, by the way, are parents whose young daughter disappeared about 7 years ago in Portugal, and they've become a household name in Britain. They have themselves attracted a fair amount of controversies. So this woman has apparently sent lots of notorious tweets online to them, provocative tweets, even though they themselves don't use a Twitter account. So she was publicly branded a troll, confronted by Sky News. She committed suicide a week later. These are examples of high-profile trolling examples. But the concept itself, I would agree with Grace Dent, is very vague. I mean, how do you differentiate between a cyberbully and someone who is simply having different opinions from the status quo? It is a grey area. I mean, I've been called a troll on certain forums simply because I had a strongly worded difference of opinion. And I've noticed this with other people as well. They've been branded a troll because they're having a different opinion from the status quo. Now, I think there are people out there who, let's say, are far less than diplomatic online, and they go into groups whereby they strongly disagree and they have strongly worded retorts to that group. You know what, I've done it myself, whereby I've seen comments that I think are objectionable, and I've logged into a page in order to reply to a certain comment. It's not because I particularly want to do it, it's because I feel that there needs to be a counter-argument. So does that make me a troll? Obviously I would say it doesn't. So the point I'm making is, how do you differentiate between someone simply having a different opinion and someone who is trying to get a cheap laugh out of stirring things up? Now, when I do that, it's not to try and wind people up, it's because I believe there needs to be a counter opinion, or views which I think are unacceptable need to be challenged. So this term troll itself gets thrown around a lot. That's not to trivialise the fact that there is such a thing as cyberbullying. I see a lot of despicable comments online. I mean, I've made a few videos where I've spoken about the way certain boxing fans behave online they would never do in real life. These guys would never have the balls to say that to a boxer's face, yet they would say very slanderous comments behind a computer screen. But would I advocate sending them to jail for it? Certainly not. I advocate challenging their stupidity. But this is a very murky area when we're proposing sending people, well, when the Justice Secretary, to be precise, proposes sending people for 2 years for what may be a few nasty comments. I think that is very questionable. Very questionable. Someone may have had a few too many drinks and said something in a way that's far less undiplomatic. I'll go on record as saying, looking back at my cyber history, there have been times when I've been very angry about a particular subject, and I have said things in a way that is less than diplomatic. In retrospect, I somewhat regret it. Not the sentiments, but the way I said it. So for all I know, say for the sake of argument, I ever end up a public figure. I'm writing a novel right now. Let's say for the sake of argument it becomes a success, and some of these comments are brought back to haunt me. If that occasion comes up, I'm going to try and be candid and say, okay, I had those views then. I wasn't that diplomatic. They were sincere views, but I should have worded it in a different way. But this is the problem. It is actually a very serious violation of free expression if we go down a route of jailing people simply for having a contentious view. And that's essentially what it amounts to. I mean, hell, I would argue that the Conservative Party should, under that logic, they should be in jail for slandering the unemployed on their billboards during the general election. That's how ridiculous this proposal is by Chris Grayling. And don't get me wrong, I fully understand that cyberbullying can be very damaging, and I think people like that are disgusting, who actually go out of their way to bully vulnerable people. I do think it's disgusting. So I don't think we should entirely trivialise some of the problems that can happen online. But I do have a problem with the idea of sending someone to jail for something that is very abstract in the first place. This is not a specific crime. It is not clearly defined, and I doubt that the Justice Secretary himself can clearly define this. So I agree with Grace Dent. I don't think people should be jailed for this at all. If there's a clear-cut case of cyberbullying, then the person should face some consequences, maybe a community sentence. But jailing someone for expressing a view online is extreme. It's a sort of, I mean, one of the things I often make a point about when I'm talking about human rights issues in other countries is that we have relatively good freedom of speech in this country. But that doesn't mean that we can be complacent about that situation. And if we go down this route, then we cannot claim that we have good freedom of speech in this country, because we won't have it. So I really think this is a dangerous territory that Chris Grayling is going down. It's draconian. It's frankly the sort of thing that dictatorships would do, because it is very, very loosely defined. How on earth do you define trolling? I mean, is this going to apply to people who angrily post comments on the Conservative Facebook page? I mean, well, where do you draw the line? How do you even define a troll? Because one person's troll is someone else just having strongly worded opinion. So until we can even define the word properly, then I think it's a dangerous area. It's a bit like the word hater. That's thrown around a lot as well. And admittedly, I've used it myself in one of my top videos. I even used the word. Again, that's a word that could be thrown around. I've seen the word hater used for simply people criticising a certain celebrity, and then their fans come out and they, oh, you're a hater. But sometimes the criticism is legitimate criticism. So these words that get thrown around on cyberspace are just that, thrown around. And I do think it's problematic. So let me know your thoughts on this. Should someone be jailed for trolling? Because we do know that cyberbullying, for example, can be very serious. And let me be clear about this. I think that cyberbullies are disgusting, and I do think that they should face some sort of consequences. But I don't think that someone should be jailed for writing a few stupid sentences in a moments of stupidity or passion or being drunk. I don't think they should be jailed for that. Confronted, yes. Jailed, no. That's my view. Let me know your thoughts. Cheers.